POV cams for hunting? Stick around and find out why.
Every time we go there, people seem to know their place. Some of them would call you, hey, I think I know your face. It could be anyone there.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. John here with Foxtail Media. Today, on episode 2 of the segment of How to Film Your Hunt, we are going to talk about POV cams, or point of view cameras, aka GoPros, Tacticams, Insta360s, and Osmo Action 4s alike. So let's start off by defining what is a point of view camera, or POV camera. A POV camera is just a small action style camera that does exactly that. It captures action in crazy ways and angles that you may not otherwise get, especially if you're into self-filming. So now that we've defined what a POV camera is, let's talk about what the intent is of a POV camera as it pertains to filming your hunts. It's to get those cool shots that are, over your shoulder, maybe off to the side, filming you actually using your bigger camera rigs to film. Intended use is pretty subjective, so it all depends on what you're doing. Are you fishing? Are you hunting deer? Are you hunting turkey? So let's talk about the pros of using a POV cam. Well, it's very simple to use. So the ease of use of a POV cam is what draws most people to them. You click one button, the dang thing starts recorded. You're recording 4K 30, 4K 60, or 1080p 240. Most of them have remotes, so it's easy to activate whether you're right there or you're at a little bit of a distance. So you can hit it with a remote. Most of the POV cams you can access via an app on your phone, so if you don't have a remote, you can scroll through your phone, change the settings, hit record, change it to picture settings, maybe be able to take a few pictures while you're there. So that is a pro. Some more pros of using POV cams are like just those crazy action shots that you wouldn't otherwise get, like sticking it on the side of a vehicle with a suction cup mount or magnetic mount or something of that nature as you're driving to and from the field, or to and from a set, or to and from a goose field or a fishing pond, or whatever you're doing, to and from a turkey set. You can do some killer slow-mo action shots with that thing, or you can just run it and put an accessory mod on it and have a mic on it and have decent audio and a decent picture that's going to capture something for you. Now let's talk about the negatives. I would say one of the biggest cons is that people use them as crutches because they're so easy. They're so packable. They're so light. They're so out of your way. I mean, it's one of the easiest things to use and for a fairly good price. So to me, that can be a negative. As far as growing your content and growing the way that you want to shoot content and shoot your hunting videos, it can be a negative. The ease of it might be just a little bit too easy. Just like when anything else is, it's too easy. You don't put a lot of work into it. You don't put a lot of effort into it. You go grab your camera. You just head to the woods. As you're walking through the woods, you're just holding your camera out, you're talking to it. Why? Because it's got a mic on it. Why? It's got a screen on it. It's super easy. Well, all those shots look exactly like what you're doing. You're talking to the dang GoPro, like it's clearly a GoPro shot. So there's nothing wrong with that, but as you grow in this filming adventure, you may want to put the GoPro down. Another big con of GoPros or action POV cams is where you mount them. People have chesty mounts, and if you think about it, a chesty mount or a head mount that's on your head, or if it's on your firearm or on your bow and it's extended out, anytime you move, this thing is moving. You don't think about it, especially if it's on your head, especially if it's on your chest. You're moving around, this is moving, you look and you're pointing down. When you go back to watch that footage, once again, it's like what I talked about with the zoom. The GoPro or POV cam's the same way. You're going to get freaking motion sickness. A lot of that footage isn't even usable. You don't think about it in the moment because you're thinking, oh, I'm just rolling. If you're trying to use it as your main rig, it's like hitting a double bogey on a, par 5. Bad news. So let's discuss on my experience and how I particularly use POV cams. Most of the time, and well, let's start off with a deer setting. If I'm in the woods and I'm in a ground blind, and say I have my boy, as a third camera option, I'm running 2 main body cams for me personally. When I first started out, I was running 1 main body cam and I was running a GoPro. If I'm in a blind, I have where's that here? I have a 4th arrow POV stake. Screw this bad boy onto the 4th arrow POV stake. You stick this thing in the ground. It telescopes. It'll get as high as you want, and it's perfect. You can set it at the edge of the blind, and you can set it back facing you, so it'll get both you and the cameraman in your video. That's one of the ways I use it in a ground blind. Now, let's say you're just turkey hunting. You can either use this POV stake and you can stake it in the ground by your decoys and have a nice decoy setup. Have these actually in your decoys. Some people use the little mounts that you can glue on top of the decoys, but I don't want to ruin my decoys. It looks pretty cool, but you can do the same thing with a POV stake, or you can do the same thing with a mini tripod and your little 1/4-20 adapters for that. You can do the same thing with a Tacticam, with the GoPro, it doesn't matter, but that's kind of how I use them in a turkey situation, on the ground or in a ground blind for deer. It's the same thing. I'll use this bad boy if I have like a buck decoy out, a boss buck decoy out when I'm whitetail hunting in the pre-rut. Put a POV cam on that. I'll grab my remote, GoPro remote. That's another GoPro remote. That's another positive. Or Tacticam remote. Activates a ton of Tacticams. That's a positive with Tacticam. There's not many, but that's one of them. But click your little button. This one probably, I would say, has a 20-yard range. It says better than that, but it ain't better than that. I don't know what Tacticams are because I refuse to buy another one. But very good positive of that. You can set them up in your decoys either with a POV stake or a mini tripod by 4th arrow, and you're going to get those interesting shots of a turkey coming in full strut, or a deer coming in to smell your decoy. Make sure you got that thing sprayed down. Another way that I use POV cams are in the trees. Now you can use, GoPro makes clamp mounts. You just clamp it up there on a limb, and that way you can angle your GoPro down so you can get a cool shot like that. Or I prefer these 1/4-20 screw-in mounts. These 1/4-20 screw-in mounts, you can screw them into a tree limb and get a cool different angle, or you can screw them into, above you or behind you or off to the side, and you can get it over the shoulder angle. A lot of times you can keep that wide, and if you do keep it wide and keep it a little higher, if a deer comes in frame into your 20-yard shooting lane, you're going to be able to not only get it on your main rig, but if you happen to not get it on your main rig and you got that GoPro rolling over your shoulder and it's wide, you're going to be able to get that second angle, and as a backup, may save you. So with all them other accessories, I do have something else 4th arrow makes. It's called an outreach arm, and what it is a telescopic pole that you screw into the tree, and then you put the bar into it just like any other swing arm, and then it'll telescope out to 6 feet. And 6 feet with a super wide angle POV camera, man, you can see everything. You can see, everything. Another one of my favorite uses with a GoPro is time lapses. People do like hyperlapses and stuff when they're driving, or if they have driving from one state to another on their hunt, or they'll do hyperlapses of driving their 4-wheeler to the stand, or their e-bike to the stand, or they're side by side to wherever they're going, which is really cool. I also prefer them for time lapses. You can switch GoPros into RAW, and you can really change their settings. If you want to do a super long overnight lapse, you change your settings to 30-second shutter, 5,000 white balance instead of auto. Kick it to 5,000 white balance with up to 800th of a second shutter speed. So you can really capture some really cool stuff with a GoPro, especially time lapses. Now they do make an easy, time lapse mode that works pretty well, but I always like to do it manually. You just get the best picture and shoot it in RAW, and then when you edit and post, you can bring out the best color out of it. But GoPro tends to have a pretty good color science to it. It doesn't require much post-color correction. So just to recap, we touched on what is a POV cam, what are their intended uses, and some pros and some cons of kind of what I like and what I don't like about POV cameras, as well as I offered you some tips on how I use POV cams. Now I'll make another video down the road and show you guys settings of how I do time lapses, or how I place it in certain spots in the stands and why I place them there, but that's for another video. Next week we're going to be dropping episode 3 of how to film your hunt, and we're going to be talking about, are you ready to upgrade? That's right, upgrading your gear to the next level, the mid-tier, or what I consider mid-tier, which are your popular cameras like your Sony AX series cameras or your Canon G series. So stay tuned for that, and I'll be dropping that next week. And thanks for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, like, subscribe, like, subscribe.